I'd like to start by saying welcome to the ACR webinar, Providing Better Customer Service with Quotes in ACR. This webinar is designed to demonstrate some of the new quoting capability in ACR, and as part of this I'm going to show you how you can go through and create quotes, complete them, report on them and such. Some may be aware that not long ago there was some updates done to the quoting system to make it a much more powerful tool for running your business. So today there will be the option to do questions later on. We will have a dedicated Q&A session at the end for any questions you've got, where we'll go through and we'll answer any questions. As we go along, if you do have any questions that you would like answers to, please feel free to type them into the chat box, and at the end we'll go over the questions and we'll answer any that we get in there. So what we're going to be covering today, we're going to be covering how to run through the configurations in the quote system. These configurations are designed to assist users in completing quotes when they're actually doing day-to-day operations. So what we'll find is that some of these deal with expiration dates and follow-on dates. Other ones deal with what fields are required and what fields they get to as they tab through. We're also going to have a look at the types of quotes. You've now got the ability to do templates and standard quotes, so we'll have a look at those. We're also going to introduce you to how to do quotes raise a quote in the ACR system, to review and modify, to redraw and complete, or to cancel if for some reason there needs to be cancellation on it. And we'll also be looking at how you can track a quote through that life and how you can keep looking at it and seeing what's happening with it. We're also going to be covering a little bit on reporting on the quotes within ACR, on how you can actually get a report out with information and what you can see in that information that's covered there. So as I mentioned there, we're going to actually be going over creating the quotes, on how to create and use a template, a standard quote, how to copy existing quotes if somebody's asking you just to re-raise a quote that had previously been created. We're also going to have a look at how to manage quotes with the quote maintenance tool, and we're going to actually go through and report on these quotes. So all in all, quite a bit of information we're going to cover today, but it should be a fairly easy process to do. So going to switch over to ACR now. And our new quoting area is under Sales, Quotes. Now this information here is available in the same spot regardless of which front end of ACR you use, whether you're an invoicing or a point of sale site. The quotes system is in the same spot for all of those, and you can access quotes within all of them from all front ends from within this same area. So all of this information and all of these functionality is only available in our Release 2 product, but it is available in both Shop Talk and Trade Talk. So as long as you've got Release 2 ACR, you'll be able to utilize this functionality. So another thing that's been updated with the quotes is that quotes no longer expire. Previously, you could configure a quote to expire. After they expired, they got deleted. Now what I should have said is that they do still expire, but they no longer get deleted. Quotes are kept in the ACR system permanently now, the same as any invoices or anything else that you create is kept in the system. So this now will give you the ability that you can actually go back and revisit quotes and have a look at quotes when they're 6 months, 12 months, 2 years old. So if someone was to ever come in and ask about a quote that they had raised a year or two ago, you would now be able to start looking back at that history as it builds in the system. So it'll give you that ability to be able to have a customer walk in, talk about a quote. You can actually bring that up and have a look at what was on that quote and be able to work on that quote again and create it as a new quote if you need to. The same with that, the quotes now, when they expire, they're still kept in the system. If they're cancelled, you can now actually record details against that quote as to why they were cancelled, to give you a bit more information when you start looking into this to say, all right, why aren't we winning all of these quotes, or is there any sort of information or anything we can gather as to why we're not winning the quotes that we're putting out there for people. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to take you through some basic configuration, or the basic configurations required for the quotes. So that's under Toolbox, Configuration, Quotes Configuration. And this is really the only area you need to configure anything to actually have it work with the quotes. So with this, what we've got is two sets of date configurations. Now all of these configurations get used in the quote completion screen, which we will actually see a little bit later on in the webinar. So a quote now has two dates that are or three dates that are tied to it. When the quote's raised, when the quote is marked for a follow-up date, so that's simply a date that's assigned to the quote where you're saying, I would like to do something further with this quote after this date, and we'll see how we can get that. We can get quotes that are past their follow-up date out in the reporting. And then there's the expiry date where you're actually saying, right, this quote expires in X amount of time. So if nothing's been done on it, it will move to an expired status and then just basically get archived in the ACR system. So you can actually preset what date though a quote will get marked as follow-up or get marked as expiry. When your users actually get to that point in the actual quote completion screen, they can override these dates if they need. So someone may ask for a quote but say, look, I'm not going to need it for 4 months. They could actually manually go and adjust the expiry date if they require. So the way you can set, what you can do with the follow-up and the expiry date is determine whether it's from the month end following the quote's creation or from the invoice date the quote is created. You then set the number of periods and what the period is. So whether you say, I want to follow up in 1 month after the quote, or I want to follow up 1 week after the quote, and then have the expiry go 2 months after the quote. So you can mix and match those periods and number of periods to suit yourself. From that, we then have the fields that people need to enter underneath that. So prompt means which fields will a user stop at when they're tabbing through the quote completion screen. Mandatory means what fields will the system stop a user going past until they've entered something in. So the type is whether standard or a template. Order number is an order number that gets kept with the quote through the life of it. It's an alphanumeric field, and this number does actually get printed on the final quote when it comes out. The reference again is an alphanumeric field that is a search field that you can actually look up the quote by its reference number. It does actually get printed on the hard copy of the quote as well, so it's easy to look it up again when you're going back to it. You've then got follow-up date and expiry date. Now you'll notice down the bottom here that there are a number of fields that are mandatory to be filled out. So it's mandatory for them to select what type of quote, and it does default to standard. It's mandatory to enter a reference number, mandatory to enter an expiry date, and mandatory to enter a salesperson link to it. Other than that, you can select other fields to become mandatory, or you can also select fields that you want to skip. So you might decide that you don't actually want it to stop automatically on expiry date or follow-up, and just to accept those, That means if the users are tabbing through the fields as they come to it, it will go from reference straight over to customer name. It won't stop on those. They would have to actually manually go back and make an adjustment to those if they wanted to. So for our demonstration, we'll just leave them ticked. Now the customer name and customer number is different to the ACR customer. So this one here is your ACR customer. So that would be your actual debtor in the system. The customer name, customer number is the contact name or the contact number. So you may have a customer who has 2 or 3 people come in to get quotes. This is where the contact name and number come into play, that who is the person to contact and what is their best contact number relating to this specific quote. Then you've also got which debtor is this quote relating to. You've then got who the salesperson is that's completed the quote. And finally, you've got a free entry field called notes that will actually allow you to enter in notes that stay with the quote for the life of the quote. So even 6 or 12 months later, if you come back to this quote, you can actually get in and have a look at the notes and see what happened. You might find that there was a lot of negotiation and the operators have put notes in there about why they've arrived at prices or what's happened with it, so that later when you come back to review it, you're not just seeing this is how much the quote was. You can get a bit of a narrative about why the quote has got to the point it has got to. So that's all there is to the configurations. In the simplest form, if you were to set a follow-up and an expiry date in the quote configuration and leave everything else as it is default, it would mean that your operators would be able to get in, do a quote, it will get default marked with a follow-up date, default marked with an expiry date, and operate and have all the information you needed in there. So we'll select on that for the moment. What we're going to come up to now is we're going to actually have a look at how to raise a quote. So there is a number of ways you can raise a quote, and how you raise a quote depends on what front end you're using. So if you're an invoicing site, you can come in here and raise an invoice quote. If you're a point of sale site, you can come in here and you can raise a point of sale quote. Or you can go into the point of sale system and, if you've got the authority, complete a quote as a point of sale quote. So when you get to the point of sale completion screen where it asks what style of sale is it a cash sale, an account sale, a yard order, a held order, and there'll be a quote in there as an option. Alternatively, you've got the raise a quote option under quotes. Selecting this, if you only have one front end, this will launch either invoicing or point of sale ready for you to start doing a quote. If, like on our test system, you've got multiple front ends configured, it will ask you which front end you'd like to complete the quote in. So what we're going to do, we're going to complete an invoice quote as a template first, and then we'll actually come back to it and have a look at how we use the template quote once we've completed another quote. So we'll raise an invoice quote and click OK. These messages are just coming up because of the dates we have on the system. Now it's asking us in typical fashion for our customer. So we enter in the customer. We can put an order number in here. We can now add in the products that we'd like to put on our quote. So 30 of these. As you can see, it's going through, completing it as if it was a normal sale. Up the top here, you will note that it says quote system. When we go to complete it, ask if we're going to add any insurance, any freight, just like a normal sale would have, and brings up the quote completion screen that we were talking about with the quote configuration. So what we're going to do here, we're going to tell it we actually want to do this as a template. You'll see here that the order number that I've entered in the system has actually come through into the order number automatically for the quote completion. So now we can put in our reference number. As I said, we've got the automatic dates followed up here in the system. So 1 week for the follow-up date, 2 months from April, for 1st of April, for the expiry date. Contact name, put in a phone number. Now the customer is already entered in here because the system has been told which customer, and it enters in their salesperson. And these notes get kept with the system. They'll get kept with the quote for the life of the quote. So once we've entered that, we can simply click on OK, and it's now going to print out the quote for us. So the same as a normal system. If you want to print out a head office copy and a normal copy, you can. A B2B can be put on these so that you can actually see these, like these can be emailed out to your customer directly. So what we'll see on here is our order number, webinar test is on here. We've got our products, we've got quote only and quotation with the final pricing. It also has our regular transaction number in here. So that is as simple as it is to create a quote template in the system. A standard quote would be completed the same way in the invoicing system, but by selecting standard instead of template. So what we're going to do now, we're going to quickly do a point of sale invoice, point of sale quote, to show the point of sale people that it's just as easy in their system. So when you're doing a quote, it comes up again asking for which customer we're going to do it for, and goes through and allows us to enter in our products. When we're happy with the product list that we've got in there, and again we can have multiple products if we like, we can complete. What you'll notice here is it'll only complete with a quote sale option. It won't give you any other option to finish the sale when you're in quote mode. Again, it's asking us for this information. And we can click on OK. Gives us the display of sale to have a look at it, make sure that the charge to deliver to details are correct, and click on OK. And again, this time we'll just have a customer copy again to screen. And we'll see this time it's printed up, but this time it's actually printed up on a point of sale invoice rather than our invoicing invoice. So again, we have similar information, the order number, the reference number is shown under the delivery instructions, and it's all here with quotation at the top. Okay. There is one further thing I did want to show you in the invoicing system. When you're using the invoicing system, the same as if you were using invoicing for completing a regular sale, you can press the F5 key and bring up their buying profile, so effectively the history of what they've bought. Find a product that you want, double click on it, brings it down here ready for you to enter the number of products that you'd like. When you come down to the next line, brings you back to the buying profile. As well as that, you can also press the F6 key and bring up a buying template if you're using buying templates for these customers. So you can actually just enter in here how many of a product you want, complete, and it completes the fill for you. And then it's just simply a matter of clicking complete, as long as you've got prices in there. Standard. We've got no order number here, the reference, webinar, and OK. As you saw there, I just put the very minimal information it required and completed it. and again it's just completed as a regular quotation. So what we're going to have a quick look at now is managing these quotes in quote maintenance. So with quote maintenance, we've got our regular maintenance screen that most people would be familiar with. So we can do something simple like just go all quotes for this month and find, and we'll see there the three quotes that we saw for this month, or we wanted to raise for this month. Again, we could actually go here and say, right, we actually want March, and click find, and we'll see here that there's actually a larger number of quotes because we've gone back to March. The same, we can click all dates.
Specified customer ID.
Sorry about this. All right, we've just lost our internet link. Sorry about this. We might see if we can switch to another system and continue with this presentation. Alright, no, it appears we're back. Sorry about that. So yeah, with this, we can also do a regular, with this, sorry about that. The system can also look up things like normal. So we can do like specified customer. Come across here, type in our customer number for all dates to find, we find the customer that we want, and it'll show us all of the quotes for that customer regardless of the time period it was created in. So in conjunction with the find, we can also use a status. So we can have a look for quotes that have got a particular status. So we can look for expired in February and find, and that will only find the expired quotes for that period. Again, with the type, we can have a look for just for standard or just for template. So we can go back to March here, all quotes, any status, template only, and find, and that's going to return the quotes that were created as templates in the system. If we go to April, we'll be able to find that quote that we did in the system here. And again, source allows you to have a look at the different sources. So now we've got a template quote up in the system at the moment. So what we can do with this is we can redraw the template quote using the redraw, and this is going to redraw the template quote as we created it, ready to go. So if you've got a customer who's always after basically the same quote, you can use templates to create it. All you need to do here now is just complete, add any insurance and freight, print immediately as a picking slip, and it's ready to go. Print it as a picking slip. And what we'll find is that that initial template is still there, ready to go. Again, with this, you could have redrawn it if you'd liked, and have actually gone in and added additional products if for some reason you may just have the template quote as a base. That needs a few modifications on it as it goes along. Now, with this, we can switch over to any type and find. If you've got, however, just a normal quote that you want to redraw, you can just select redraw. And this will redraw the regular quote into the front-end system that you were using. Sorry, I was going to try and grab the other one. So it redraws it, ready for you to then complete the quote as you require. So complete it immediately. Okay. So nice and simple. So with this one, we can redraw the point of sale one too. We'll see it's now in the point of sale system. It's now allowing us to complete the quote however we require. So we can do it as a cash sale, as an account sale. We can go in here as a cash sale, do it, other printer. We'll print a customer copy, and it's completed. Again, all of these can be emailed out through eDocs if they're required, and it's created into a tax invoice. It also changes the status to completed rather than open once you're done. Now, the different statuses that are available, you've got open, completed, cancelled, or expired. A quote will only get to the expired status if on the day after the expiry date here. So on the 2nd of June, when we run the day, or when we run the day end on the 1st of June, it rolls into the 2nd of June, this will become expired, and the status will change to expired. If, however, we need to cancel a quote, we can use one of the buttons down here, cancel selected. And what this does, it brings up the quote to show us, is this the one we want? When we do quit, are we sure we want to cancel it? Yes, we are. And this time it gives us a quote cancel screen where we can select whether it's we were outbid, did the user cancel it, is there another one? And the notes are here available for us as well. So we can select outbid. Joe give a little bit of a description with it, so we can click on OK. Now with that, if you ever wanted to see that again, you could come back to it using the invoice statistics. The invoice, display selected, details, and we've got the details down here in the notes, as well as the details that go along with the quote. So that's the display selected. Now, even if we've cancelled a quote, if that person was to come back in and say, sorry, I need to get that quote re-raised again, exactly as it is, what you can do is you can actually use the duplicate selected button. Selecting this gives you the choice. Do you want to recreate it with a different customer or with the same customer? If you click no, it will recreate it with the same customer. If you click yes, it'll recreate it, prompting you for a new customer. Now, if you're happy with this quote exactly as it is, you can refill out the details and click OK. Otherwise, you can click cancel to actually go back in and make modifications to this quote. So cancel, they might have said, look, instead of 10, give me 15 of those, please. And now you can recomplete it. Holding all the information, ready to go. Now, in your normal front ends, most operations would be familiar with being able just to use the semicolon Q command, so something like point of sale. In point of sale, just using semicolon Q. This will still bring up a list of quotes, but this will bring up a list of only open quotes. So if a quote has expired, been cancelled or completed, it will not show in the system at all. It will not show in this part of the system. This will only show the open quotes ready to be completed. So that covers off our quote maintenance. Now we're getting down into the reporting section, where we're going to have a look at the quote report. So the quote report allows us to pick transaction dates we'd like to see. We can also narrow down to just a specific salesperson. So if you've got a number of sales people in your team that are out producing quotes, you can actually report on each salesperson individually if you wanted to. Past follow-up means only quotes that within this date range will be past follow-up. So this is where you can do things like if you've got a weekly sales meeting and you want to see what quotes have now gone past your follow-up period, you might select past follow-up quotes that are open. Generate report. And it will tell you if there's anything to print or not. Alternatively, you may decide to leave it like this and just any status, anything, generate report. And that will give us any quote that within that period it has a date of an invoice date within that period. So what we can also do is we can do the first of the second 2010, 28th of second 2010. Past follow-up, any status, generate report. Sorry. So that will allow you to generate reports on quotes. And what these reports will show you is the transaction date, the salesperson, what quote number the quote is, who the quote was for, their name, who the actual contact person was. So if you've got a group of quotes all for the same customer, you can see which contact person for each one, what the total value was, when their follow-up date is, when their expiry date, and what their status is. So let's try one more. I'm just going to do one for 2010. Because this one I believe will have a little bit. So as you can see here, it's now got the details of, in date order, what quotes, showing you which ones are open, which ones are cancelled, when their follow-up date is. So that largely covers the new ACR quoting system. So just to cover off, some helpful hints. You can now complete a quote as either a standard quote or a template quote. Template quotes, as you saw, can be used to create quotes on an ongoing basis. Quotes no longer get deleted. They remain visible in quote maintenance from when they're created for pretty much ever. As you saw there, you can report on them, you can redraw them, you can duplicate them again, even if they've been expired or completed, ready to use again. You can report on any quote that's past follow-up that is still open by using the reporting. And if you complete the quote configuration, just helps you streamline the quoting system to allow you to just have your operators operate just a little bit more efficiently without having to work out follow-up dates or completion or expiry dates on quotes. Well, look, thank you everybody for joining us today. Really do appreciate your time this afternoon to have a look at the ACR quote system. If you'd like any further information, if there's anything that wasn't quite clear and you'd like a little bit more information on it, or if you just want to talk to one of the trainers at ACR to discuss how you could utilize this in your system, please feel free just to contact ACR, our trainers, and they'll go through for more information. Alternatively, you can always contact your account manager, Matt Knight, and I'm sure he'd love to have a talk to you about it. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. We'll talk to you later.